This is our HSRE model slitter rewinder, set up with hot knife blades. The material is placed on the unwind shaft. It's a 2-inch air shaft for this model. You place the material where you'd like it to slit. It then is pulled through a set of S-wrap rolls for flattening and tensioning. The unwind shaft has a pneumatic brake that can be controlled on the control panel. It then passes through a nip roll, the hot knife blades, and then is separated and duplex rewound onto the 2 rewind shafts. The hot knife blades are pneumatically controlled as far as pressing into the material, and they're electrically controlled by the power controllers. There's 4 zones, 4 controllers. Each zone can take up to 5 hot knife blades. The blades are pneumatically connected to the manifold and electrically connected to the electrical manifold. This model also features a length counter. This is the encoder, and the length counter module, which you can reset and it will count footage that you're running. It can also be set up to stop the machine at a preset length. I've set up the blades into 1.5-inch spacing, and I've cut the cores, put them on the rewind shaft to correspond to the slit. We're going to tape them up and run the machine. The rewind shafts are controlled by a pneumatic clutch, which is controlled by this regulator. Before you tape the material on, always turn the regulator up so that it's held firmly in place. It's important when you're slitting the material and taping it on that you make all the strips equally tight. If you taped one on loose like that, it would never get tight. So they have to all be equally tight. It's also important that all the cores are the same thickness. Okay. Now the unwind shaft tension is controlled by the unwind brake. For such a narrow roll, you would use a small amount of pressure. I'm going to set that at about 10 psi. For a full width roll, you would start at about 40 or 50. As the roll reduces in size, you reduce that. On the rewind side, again being a narrow roll, I'm going to start at about 15 pounds of pressure. Actually, I'm going to start at about 10 pounds of pressure. As the roll builds in size, you can increase that. This is the controller for number 1, zone number 1. You turn on the power. It's a 40 amp controller, so you never exceed 40 amps because you'll burn out the controller. Each controller will take 5 blades, and the blade will take about 12.5 volts. If you only had 4 blades, you still put 12.5 volts on there, and your amperage would be less. Okay, now we got the blades, these turned on. I got it on pretty much maximum temperature. I'm going to let the blades heat up. I actually have them engaged. You can see they're going to turn red and start smoking. At this point, it's ready to go. This is the speed control on the drive. I'm going to turn up the speed. It was bouncing a little bit, so I turned up the clutch pressure. Now with a hot knife slitting, the quality of the slit is dependent on the heat and the speed. But this material is very thin, so I can run at full heat and full speed. Some materials like this, when you're melting the edge and sealing it, it'll build up a little bead. If that happens, like on this material, you just take a piece of cardboard and kind of rub that bead down occasionally. And you can kind of feel the edge. I can feel the bead on there. I'm going full speed. I probably can turn my temperature down a little bit. And that'll reduce that size of that bead. The amount of break that you want to have on the back, if you have too little break, it'll get soft in here and pull a wrinkle up through the nip. So you want enough break on the unwind and enough wrap here just to keep the material smooth. On the rewind, you want enough pressure to make a nice hard package. If it's too hard, you'll actually crush the core. If it's too soft, you'll get a kind of not a straight package. Again, we're going to just increase it by just like 1 psi. So if you're starting at 15 at core, by the time at full size, you're maybe going to want to be at 30. For a roll, it's about 6 inches in diameter. The pressure that you use to push the blades in, it doesn't need very much. I have it set on 40 psi. That's adequate. If you have it too much, you'll actually, here we just finished the roll. If you have it too much, it'll put a flat spot on the blade. So now we pulled the roll all the way through. Always turn off the blade. And you can open up this switch, relieves the blades from the nip. And you see we got a pretty nice wine, a nice hard package. I'm going to take those and remove them. To get the shafts out, you lift up like that. You relieve the air pressure from the shaft. Lift it up out of the machine. Place it in the docking holder. Now we can remove the rolls. Okay, inside the cabinet I have the manuals, the schematics. Maintenance-wise, you have a couple of bearings that have zerk fittings on it, and we have a gearbox that would need oil change. There's a clutch that has clutch pads that do wear out in several years. You need to change that, and there's several chains that need to be kept tight. We'll be providing a service manual with it that will tell you how to tighten things and what intervals to do the maintenance work on.